This lesson is part 2, an extension of how to draw a fashion body illustration in Adobe Illustrator, but the part 2 version of this is going to be to emphasize on how to draw hair, accessories, and faces. So we left the part 1 tutorial at how to dress the model, how to put the clothing on, how to add shadow effects to the body, skin tone, shadow effects to actual outfit. So we left off in part 1 at that video. So now the next step would to actually start to layer in hair, start to dress your model with accessories of your choosing. For this particular drawing, I gave my model, my fashion body illustration, shoes, little sandals. I gave her bracelets. I gave her a headscarf. And all those things were derived, that inspiration of those details were derived from some of the imagery that I had on my concept board for this project. You know, my girls in these images had a lot of headscarves, a lot of accessories that they wore. You know, I wanted to kind of play on some of that. So, you know, again, everything in this project that you work on should always come from the inspiration of your concept board. Even when you're designing the clothes, and just the style of the look of the person should all kind of pull from that inspiration you initially pulled in the concept board, and it could also help you to figure out what accessories you want to draw as well. So first thing is, you know, you definitely, before you start to do this, you should make sure that your whole entire outfit is drawn on the figure, and finishing it through the part 1 tutorial that I did, where you're going to have all your details, all your stitching, all your details, everything should match. And you should make sure that it matches against your flat CAD drawing that you have. So once you're done all that, then you're in a good place. Your next step would be the start. And then you have your shadow effects and all that stuff done in the actual flesh tone of the body, and also any shadow effects you have in your outfit done. The last step would then be to add any accessories, add hair, because it is always nice when you can give your fashion illustration hair. And it is also nice to complete with shoes. I always try minimally to give them hair and shoes in every fashion illustration I do. Just it makes the fashion illustration look that much more complete, and it also, again, gives you a more merchandise look of what the person's going to wear with this outfit that you've designed. So really encourage you to think about the whole entire outfit as a whole, the style as a whole, really about the customer you're thinking of for this concept collection that you're doing, even down to the way their hair is styled. I think is really important to kind of help convey the whole style of the collection. So I decided that for my girl, that in this collection, which was more of a beachy bohemian feel in my concept board, I knew that her hair was going to be a little bit more windswept and a little bit imperfect. I knew that headscarves were something I definitely wanted to add as a detail that was inspired by the concept board. You know, I know that I wanted to give her a little bit of jewelry and a little bit of a strappy sandal, because she probably is on the beach with this outfit. So those are the accessories that I did, and I pulled them apart here to show you how I'm going to add them onto the figure. But basically, where you're going to leave off for part 1's tutorial of the fashion illustration is right here. You should have a fully clothed figure, shadow effects, everything done, all your top stitching, all your loose pieces, matching your flat CAD before you add your accessories. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to want to do is, anytime I'm getting ready to draw something new over top of my fashion body illustration, and the same thing goes for anytime I'm going to draw something new over my flat CADs, I'm going to lock it for a moment, because I don't want all those beautiful stroke lines that I have to get accidentally pulled on when I draw something new, and then I can mess up the illustration I already have drawn so nicely. So first thing I'm going to take this black arrow, hover over my whole entire drawing, and I'm going to do an object lock selection. So we're going to lock it just like we would over our croquis figure when we're drawing flat CADs. I'm going to lock it because I'm going to start drawing hair over, and I just want to make sure that I'm locked. So actually, the first thing that I actually did, now that I think about it, going back to when I drew this the first time, is I actually drew this headscarf first, because then the hair, you can see the hair looks really wacky when I pulled it off the head, because I only drew the hair coming out of the bottom of the headscarf and above the headscarf and then down on the side of the headscarf. So for me, if you're going to have a hat that you're planning on drawing, draw the hat first, and then whatever hair comes out of the hat, you're going to draw as a separate shape. So if you plan on having any head covering, I would definitely draw the head covering first, and then let the hair be only the pieces that you're going to see that's going to come out of that head covering as the second thing that you draw. So the first shape that I did was actually shaped like this, and I actually drew this with the pen tool. And again, when I start drawing my shapes, I usually always make sure I draw them with a no fill color and just a stroke color. So that's how I started with this headscarf. I drew a random shape. I'm pretty sure I drew it with the pencil tool here because I wanted something a little bit more wrinkled up because I knew the headscarf was going to be a little bit more folded and wrinkled on her head. So I drew a really freehand look like that over my head because I knew I wanted to be on the head, right? So you can draw shapes using the pen tool. If you have like a hat that maybe isn't so wrinkled, it's a little bit more of like a perfect shape hat, you might want to use the pen tool to do that. And you know, I'd really encourage you, if you are designing a hat shape or a bag shape or shoe shapes, maybe you have some things that you researched on the internet that you can help you to see how they're actually, what they're going to look like on the foot or on the head. You know, you can even have like a model pick that you picked that is wearing a hat that's similar to what you want to design. You can have that next to you when you draw it so you can really understand like how the hat sits on the head or how the shoe sits on the foot. And you can really kind of reference that for like how to draw the shape. So yeah, I just drew a random shape. I actually used the pencil tool only because I knew it needed to be a little bit more of an organic shape, a little less perfect. If you have a perfect shaped hat, I would probably do the pen tool because it'll give you more of an exact shape. If you're doing something a little bit more drapey, I kind of just randomly drew a couple of wrinkles and, you know, random shape like that. So I did that with the pencil tool. And if, you know, anytime you draw with the pencil tool, just know you're going to have a million little vector points. So that's why I try and draw with the pen tool as much as possible versus the pencil tool. Only because if I need to manipulate this, because if I didn't like how I drew it the first time, I'm going to have a ton of vector points and curve lines that I have to move around in order to get the shape that I want. Where if you draw it with the pen tool, you can be a little bit more exact, but you're just going to have to draw a lot of segments of curve lines, but you'll definitely have less pen vector points to have to manipulate later if you need to change the shape. So it's really just going to depend on the look. I needed this to be a little bit more organic of a shape, so I drew it with the pencil tool. If you have something that's definitely more of a defined shape, I would draw it with the pen tool, not the pencil tool. So I drew a shape like this. I knew when I was drawing this outfit and as I went along that I wanted it to be filled with a denim texture because that was important to my concept board, and I actually have a denim texture fabric scan from the internet that I pulled into the second colorway of my shorts. So I had that available for me to pull from, and all I had to do to change my headscarf into a denim texture is just take the eyedropper tool over top of that denim texture I used in my shorts, and I made sure my fill box was on top before I did that. And now the inside of my shape of what's going to become my headscarf got filled with that denim texture. So you can do the same thing. Like if I wanted this to be filled with stripe, you know, I can click on that new shape that I just drew with the black arrow because my body is locked. So I can click on things, that shape with the black arrow now, and select it, and I can just eyedrop if I want it to be stripe. I can eyedrop it to be stripe. I can eyedrop if I want it to be yellow or any color from my outfit. I can do that. But I knew I wanted it to be the denim fabric texture from the second colorway of my shorts. So I eyedropped on that to get that texture. And then I drew loose pieces kind of hanging off the side because I know it's going to be tied. You know, it's going to come off the side and be tied. So I kind of had drawn that around the ear. As separate loose pieces. Again, I personally did them with the pencil tool because I wanted a little bit more of an organic shape, but if you have a defined shape, you should use the pen tool. And then what I did, because this is a drapey type of thing, these headscarves usually are, they're really kind of crinkled up and folded like when you wear them on your head. I drew random fabric motion lines to kind of indicate the wrinkles that might happen inside this headscarf. And I drew those actually with the pencil tool as well. But these are loose pieces, you guys. So my join shape is this. This is my join shape that I fill with color and pattern. These little fabric motion lines are always going to be loose pieces. So what do I always say about loose pieces? Never have a fill color in your loose pieces. They should only have a stroke color only. So I'll repeat that to the end of time just to make sure that that starts to sink in. So that's really important. All your loose pieces never have a fill color. So I just drew some random ones to kind of indicate some of the folding and wrinkling that might happen inside the tie that comes off and inside the main component of the headscarf. So, I have my headscarf. Let me just bring this over now. I'm going to group it together so I can have it all be together on her head. And then, if anything starts to hide behind the illustration like we just did for me, all you have to do is go object arrange, bring to front, and it'll come forward. So don't get ever scared that things aren't showing the way you want them to do. Just click on, make sure they're selected, and always use that object arrange, bring to front, or send to back, depending on what look you want. So I gave her headscarf first because I wanted to make sure that was on her head before I started working on her hair. The hair thing is many teachers will teach this a little bit differently. I like to create hair shape first because it helps to kind of fill easily with color. And then I go back and I actually add hair texture. So I add hair texture using the brush tool, but I start off with hair shapes that are filled with color when I draw them. So again, you can do this with the pen tool if you want more of an exact kind of simple hair that's a little bit more straighter and not so flowy. If you want more hair that's kind of flowy and a little bit more windswept, I might draw my shape using the pencil tool. But notice one thing is really important about drawing your hair shape. It's going to be a fill color, not a stroke color. So very different way than we CAD our illustration and we CAD our body, the clothing we design. We only are working with a fill color. We are never working with a stroke color when it comes to hair. So please make sure when you draw the shape that you always make sure your fill box is on top and you got a no fill in your stroke box. So I first would start to draw the hair. Maybe I have a color selected already. I could pick a random, any color hair you want, and you can be wacky. If you want to give her blue hair or crazy purple hair, I don't care. It can be any hair color you want. So I take the pencil tool and, again, I might, because if I have this head covering, I'm actually going to suggest that you do this. You do an object lock selection now on the new head accessory that you have. So if you had that you drew and you finished it, lock it. So lock everything that you're getting ready to draw on top of. I'm getting ready to draw hair like coming out of this headscarf. I don't want to accidentally grab onto a point on my headscarf that I just drew. So you want to make sure you get to lock things if you're getting ready to draw anywhere close to the thing that you're getting ready to draw new. You lock the thing that you drew and finished first before you get close to drawing something new to it. So I'm going to take the pencil tool, make sure there's a no fill, my fill box. I might pick a hair color to start. I'm just going to draw, and again, it's going to be very free flow, and it's the pencil tool, so, it could be very random in the way that I draw it at first. I might have to modify it later, depending on if I like it or not, but just to get a drawing started, I would go randomly like that, and then I might have to actually go to color picker window and pick a new hair color. So I might have something to start off with that, and it might look really crazy and it might be wacky and I might not like it, but remember that everything has a vector point, has a curve handle, and I can always pull at them and mess with the shape that I just drew. I can do any modifications that I want. I can also go back and redraw it if you feel like there's too many modifications to be done because you didn't draw at near as close as you wanted it to be, so you can always go back and redraw if you don't like it. But I would always just encourage you also to try and modify it because you don't always have to start from scratch. So, maybe I drew hair. It's like a little bit crazy. So I'm going to just modify a few things to make it look a little less like these little fork handles that the bottom of her hair looks like. So I did draw like a little bit more of a free flow look, and I can pull at anything and modify to get more of a different look if I want. Using the white arrow, clicking on the white arrow and clicking on any point or any curve handle and moving it around. So first it's going to look crazy because I locked my headscarf and I locked my body. So really I'm like, the intention is to put my head accessory over the hair. So I can do that when I unlock the body. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of make sure that my hair is looking good before I start to unlock things, right? Just to get an idea of what the shape's going to look like itself before I start unlocking things, sending things to the back, hiding things, because you only want the hair to show a little bit out of certain things, and you don't want it all to cover up a headscarf or to cover up her ear. So say, for instance, I like that as my first shape. And then I know I also want to have some shape of hair coming out of the bottom of the headscarf. So I'm going to draw just, again, random like wispy For me, it was all about beach hair, so for me, it's all about wispy kind of feelings here, and I can take the eyedropper tool and I can eyedrop onto my other shape that I already did, and then again, I can modify and fix it using the curve handles and the white vector points in here. So don't worry right now that my hair is covering over the headscarf. I'm going to unlock the drawing so that I can bring the headscarf detail to the front. But right now I'm just trying to get the idea of the hair figured out, what those shapes are going to look like, how the hair is flowing. Again, you can do poker straight hair and do very like abrupt, like blunt bangs if you wanted to. I mean, I'm doing a beachy kind of windswept hair look, so mine's a little bit more of a bumpier kind of irregular look, but you can do more of a straighter look. But if you're going to do more of a windswept look, this is kind of what I would do. Use the pencil tool, and I'm just going to draw a random just like little piece right here. And again, I'll take the eyedropper tool and my eyedrop on top of it and just start to modify it again until it starts to look like, you know, white arrow. So make sure if you're going to modify it, get on the white arrow until all the vector points are white, and then you can start to play with that piece if you envision it to be drawn slightly different than you initially drew it. You can also, just let you know guys, there's another tool inside the pen tool. Even if you use the pencil tool to draw these shapes, you can always add anchor points or delete anchor points. So if you feel like you need an extra anchor point, and those are those vector points, these white points. I call them vector points. They are called anchor points, but just my terminology. It's the same thing. I feel like I need one more point right here because what I want to do is take the hair and kind of tuck it right here by the ear, and I'm missing a point when I initially drew this. So all I have to do is just add a point, click and hold down that pen tool with the mouse, and then you can find the other tools underneath the pen tool. So I want to go to add anchor point tool, and the add anchor point tool has a little plus sign next to it, and that's how you know you're in there. To use the add anchor point tool, if you wanted to add a point onto an existing line segment, you're going to use this tool. So you click on it, and then all you have to do is, it looks like this has a little crosshairs and a little plus sign next to it. You click on the actual line segment itself, wherever you want to add a point. So I know I want to add an extra vector point right there. So you can see now that little blue point, I just added it, and now I can move, because I have that extra point, now I can move that hair into that little corner of by the ear where I wanted it to be. So you can always do that as well. You can always add vector points, or you can always take the delete anchor point tool and actually delete points too by hovering over the point and deleting it. So now that I'm up close in the hair, I'm actually going to add another vector point here. And again, click on the white arrow until all the vector points are white filled. And I'm going to go back to my add anchor point tool, and I'm going to add one more point in here. And again, I'm just going to bring the hair just a little closer. But anyway, so that gives you the gist of like trying to add hair, add it as a shape, make sure you draw, you know, depending on the look you want, you can either draw it with the pen tool or you can draw it with the pencil tool. But it still will be a joined shape made up of vector points that you can manipulate using the white arrow, and you can also add points to the line segment if you want to get extra points if you need it to get the shape that you want. So now that I have my hair kind of figured out, the hair shapes and placed in the places that I want it to show, so the headscarf's going to cover up most of the hair, so I really only have hair shown at the top, hair shown at the side, and a little bit coming out underneath. So remember, I locked the drawing. So I'm at a point now where I want to unlock the drawing because I want to bring that headscarf above my hair, because a lot of it, my hair covered it up. So I'm going to hover over the drawing. I'm going to go Object, Unlock All. And when I Object Unlock All, remember I locked the figure itself plus the headscarf. So I need to unlock all, and it's going to unlock everything. So hopefully my head accessory was grouped. If it was grouped, which I would encourage you after you finish drawing your head accessory, if you are doing a head accessory, you don't have to. You want to group it so that all I have to do is do an Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. And now you can see my head accessory is now over top of that section of hair that was covering it up, right? And now that I have this hair, you know, I might need to do a modification with my head accessory now, because you can see part of my head accessory isn't covering the hair here. So I could take the white arrow now, still on this group shape, doesn't matter if it's grouped, as long as I use the white arrow, I can always still dissect it and pull it apart and manipulate it. Black arrows, you can't do that with. Black arrow, you only can select whole shapes. The white arrow, you can always continue to manipulate even if the object is grouped. And I can do the same thing with the hair. So, you know, just to get the look that you want, you know, you can still continue to do more modifications there. So now I have my headscarf accessory. I got my hair kind of started. And the thing that is like really cool is when you can add more textured strands to the hair to really give definition. So you can see over here in my finished drawing, I have more of hair textures coming out of the hair shape. Because right now, if I left it like this, to be honest, this doesn't really give you a lot of dimension. So I'm going to want to add some hair textures. So the thing that I'm probably going to do is lock, again, just my hair accessory. And actually, you know what? You can lock that plus the hair. So if you want to hold shift, you can lock the hair shape. If you hold shift, you can select more than one thing at once, and you can lock both the head accessory and the hair all at once by holding shift. And I can just do an object lock selection just on that. And then I can take the brush tool. So I'm going to use the brush tool to do my hair strands, my strands of hair. So here's my paintbrush tool right here. And what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm going to make the hair to not have a stroke color. It's only going to have a fill color. And I'm going to double click on the fill color, and I might pick a darker color, just like we did with the flesh tone. I might pick a darker color than the actual hair is. So, you know, if you eyedrop on the hair color to get your hair color in your fill box, you might double click on that and then go, just like we did for the flesh, like shadow effects. You go a couple doors down, lower or darker or lighter, depending if you want to do light kind of highlight type hair strands, or you want to do a darker hair strand. You're going to go pick a color that's on the same plane as that color of your hair, except a slightly darker, slightly lighter version. So now I have a slightly darker color for me of the brown hair. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush tool. I'm going to go to Window, Brushes, Window Brushes. And this is where you guys are going to have to play. You know, there's brushes already in this library. Stay away from any of these novelty ones when you're doing hair, but like these textured ones are good for hair. I also recommend going into the little stack of library books right here, which is our brush library menu. That's always available for you. And the artistic calligraphy brush library, I also think is good brushes for hair. But you're really going to have to play. You're really going to have to see what you want to do. But I use the default brush in the brush library that's already there. It's, you know, there's this thick one. I use the thinner one if it's available for you. It's called charcoal pencil. If it's not, it probably under the artistic chalk pencil. Yeah, it's in here. So if you don't see it automatically default, it's probably in, you'll have to open up the library icon of books and go into artistic charcoal pencil to get it. So I use that kind of texture because I wanted a little bit more of a rough look. But you'll have to play with a lot of these brushes and really just see, you know, which one you think is giving you the best kind of hair texture that you want. So I'm going to take the paintbrush tool and let's see how this works. So I just draw random strands, right? I'm just drawing a strand of hair and it's textured right now. Really important to have Windows Stroke open at the first time that you do your first your first brush stroke that indicates hair, strands of hair. Do the first one with the brush and then take the stroke line, and I try and do my stroke hair strands like in the 0.5 or 0.25 look because I really don't want them to be super thick. I want to kind of build up texture as I go. So I'm going to, and again, these are made up of vector points. So if you have a brush stroke that you drew, you can always manipulate it if it's not landing in the right place. So you can take the brush or pencil tool to use this, but I just start drawing random strands of hair, and I draw and I kind of follow the shape of the hair that I already drew and follow where the hair should start to direct itself. So if I know my shape of my hair started heading towards the right here, I might draw strands of hair that kind of do that same thing. They start to head in the direction of the shape of my hair. So I just start drawing and building layers of textures of hair, and I try and keep confined into the body shape. I mean, sorry, not the body shape, the actual hair shape. But I will just draw and layer them over and over again. And I might even layer some on top of others to kind of create a nice little texture here. You know, and all these are made up of points, guys. So remember, if one of them is unruly, if you got one unruly hair, we all have it in our life, you take the white arrow and you just kind of move it and tuck it back in. You can also manipulate it there. So you want to kind of stay in the parameters of your shape of hair that you drew. And I just start building texture, and just again I'm using that hair shape that I initially drew to kind of indicate where the strands of hair are going to go, right? So if I knew my hair shape is going towards the left or going towards the right, I'm going to draw a similar hair strand that kind of layers in the same direction. So that's kind of the idea, and you just go around and you just start layering. I might draw some wispy ones here, and I can layer again on top. And you just start drawing just random hair textures, right? So that's kind of what I would do. Just use the brush tool to do it. Pick a brush that you like that's giving you the good look, and then change the stroke of the weight. I would probably suggest maybe 0.5, 0.25. I wouldn't go too chunky because you do want to see some of the hair shape that you did in brown behind it, and then the darker brown hair strands are just accentuating that hair shape. But if you have pointy edges like this, what I did is I tried to cover them up as best as I could here. So you can see I started to really let the hair strands kind of cover up those pointy edges of the hair shape that was so defined by adding extra hair strands of hair to kind of cover that up so it looked a little less cartoonish and a little bit more real. So that's how you do hair. And then, if you wanted to do shoes, have an idea of what kind of shoe you want to do. I would use the pen tool for the shoes for sure, because shoes are very flat and very geometric like shapes, where hair is a little bit more organic, and same thing for headscarves. They're a little bit more of an organic shape where the pencil tool comes in more handy. But if you have more defined, distinct shapes, you might want to use the pen tool, and I would definitely suggest using the pen tool on all shoes. So have an idea of what kind of shoe you want, and just start dressing the foot with the shoe. So if I know I want to do a sandal, now I'm back to drawing shapes like we draw our garment pads. So now I'm working with a fill color and a no fill color right now. So I'm sorry, a stroke color and a no fill, because I'm treating the shoe accessory like an actual garment CAD. So I would make sure I start off with no fill, and a stroke in my stroke box. So I always use a black stroke outline on all my shoes, and I would suggest maybe you do the same just to give it a more defined edge. And then you can always fill the inside of the shoe with color later. So I would use the pen tool, and you're always aiming for shoes and bags and accessories like head accessories or bracelets or jewelry. You want to draw a joined shape. So you always want to make sure that when you're drawing the pen tool, you draw over the foot, but you always go back and connect back onto the point that you just started off on. So you want to make sure you have joined shapes just like you would for your body CADs, because then you can go back and you can fill them with color. And you can pick any color you want. It doesn't have to be from the color palette, you guys. When you're designing accessories, everybody wears a different accessory with their different outfits. So you can feel free to go outside of the color palette if you want. That's on your concept board if you're designing accessories. But make it complementary to the outfit. So maybe you do want to stay inside the color palette of the concept board if you have a ton of colors to work with. But if you don't have a ton of colors to work with on your concept board, you can feel free to just use the color picker window to pick out colors that you think are going to be nice accessory colors to your outfit. So what I just did here is I just drew some sandals. I just drew, joined shapes of a bottom piece of my sandal, a little detail here that goes between the toe, and then I drew a little strap here around the top part. So that was my little shoe. And you can at the end, you can always object group them if you want to hold shift and do an object group on your shoe. You will have to draw your shoes differently. You're going to have, this isn't a situation in a fashion body illustration. There is no half a drawing. There is no copy and paste from one shoe to the other, because the figure of the illustration itself has a very unique, so this foot on the left is different than the foot on the right. So you will have to freehand draw a different shoe on the left side. And the same thing if you were going to draw, something that was left to right. Shoes are really the only thing I can think of that you're going to wear two of. But you wouldn't be able to copy and paste this shoe and bring it over here and it would look nice. You're going to want to freehand draw different joint shapes over here for the shoe, because you can see my left side of the shoe is only these three pieces because only part of the foot shows, because the other part of the foot is hidden underneath the other foot because she's in a motion of walking. So that's why you have to treat your accessories that come in pairs like this, like shoes. differently and join and draw them differently. They should still be the same style shoe. You're just gonna have to draw different shapes. And then for bracelets, you know, or jewelry in general, I'm going to show you a different tool to do something like that. So I gave her a couple of just like little bangle bracelets on her wrist. And the way that I drew this is really helpful tool to learn is, yeah, I'm going to need the stroke box. Let me get rid of this brush box. I don't need the brushes anymore, and I don't need window color. So I do need window stroke to be open, so make sure that's available. I drew these actually with the pen tool. And the first thing I did is I drew them without a fill color, only a stroke color. And I just drew them with black to start, it's fine. And I drew, you know, my little bracelets where I drew them like with a little wiggle just to kind of give the illusion of them falling on her wrist. So I drew, you know, maybe I drew one like that. And you can see how thin that line is. So this is why window stroke being open is really important. So you take window stroke and you start doing a thicker stroke line to indicate a bracelet. So say for instance you want the edges of your bracelet to be very straight, right? Like how I have here, you see the edges of the bracelet are very straight. That's perfectly fine. You can have that because some bracelets are very straight edge on the side. I decided to do a bracelet that had a rounded edge, and you can see that here has a rounded corner. If you wanted to do a rounded edge like I did, then you're going to go into window stroke and click on your stroke line, and you're going to change, we haven't worked with this before, but underneath the word weight is the word cap. This is the edge that's very straight. It's called butt cap. I don't know why they called it that. It's crazy, but I would never have said butt cap. It makes me giggle. But anyway, butt cap is actually a straight edge to the ends of the points of your line segment. If you wanted a rounded edge, you just go to round cap. And look what happened to the edges of my stroke line. It gives me a rounded edge. You can see that right there. So if you wanted that look, and it's completely up to you, the look of whatever your jewelry looks like. If you want a rounded edge, you just change the cap. It's from butt cap to round cap. And then I want to make sure that the inside color of my bracelet can be unique colors. I don't want my bracelet to be black for this outfit. I have a very colorful outfit going on, and I want to pick up some of these colors from inside my striped bathing suit. So in order for me to do that, I need to change this stroke line. This is a stroke line. You can always tell it's a stroke line because look, when I click on it with the white arrow, there's a blue line segment. It goes right down the middle. That always will tell you it's a stroke line. I want to turn the stroke line into a shape, and a shape is different. So look at this. This is a shape. This is what we do on our garment CADs. We draw shapes. So the shape doesn't have a defined stroke line through the middle. The shape is made up of points that go all the way around the shape, and that way the black stroke outline that's around the shape is there, but you also get a colored fill box inside that you can color inside the shape. We did this same lesson when we did the zip hoodie CAD and we did draw cords. This is the same exact lesson we did for that, making the draw cord a shape. So you would make your jewelry a shape by clicking on the line segment that I just drew. Make sure it's the thickness that you want, so make sure it's the stroke weight you want, make sure it's the cap, the edge that you want before you do this next step, which is to go to Object, Object, Path, Outline Stroke, Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Click on that, and then look what happened. You probably can't see it right away, but I went from a line segment right through the middle, which is a stroke line, to a shape. Now all my vector points and my blue outline of my stroke line is all the way around the shape. It's not inside the middle anymore. So now it went from a stroke line into an actual shape. And now that it's an actual shape, I can give it a fill color. I can give it a stroke color, and I would definitely recommend that you give it a black stroke outline on your jewelry just to help to define the shape. If you are going to give it a black stroke outline, which is what I would do, same as I would do for garment CADs, I would do that for all your accessories, is have a black stroke outline around them. I would change the weight of the stroke line to less than 1 point, so you don't need it to be as thick. So for jewelry, I definitely take it down pretty light because I really just want to see the inside color of the jewelry. And you know, for shoes, I might take it down below 1.2. Let me see what I have here. Oh, I actually have it at 1 point, but you can do 0.75 there. But I would, you know, take it down to a stroke weight where the black stroke outline is not super overpowering. Because 1 point, you can see at 1 point when I have it like that, it's a little too thick, I think so. So I would take it down below 1 point, and you can decide what look you're looking for. But that's how you're going to do a bracelet. And if you want your bracelets to you know, be the same shape and just layered. You can copy and paste. This is a situation where you can copy and paste it. You can also rotate it if you want and kind of have them kind of look like they're crisscrossing against her arm. Or, you know, you can draw another bracelet shape if you want from scratch. Like I drew a couple here. And I just did the same lesson I just showed you again. I just drew a shape over her wrist and I just turned it into, I started as a stroke line and I turned it into an actual shape by doing path, outline, stroke. And then you can fill each one with color. So, and I will show you that if you wanted like metal jewelry, this is really important. So anybody that wants to do any kind of metal jewelry or any metal details in their buttons or in their shoes, to make sure it's its own shape, whatever metal detail you want to show. If it's not the whole entire shape that you want to fill with metal, then you'll have to draw a separate little shape. Like if it's a little medallion that features in the middle of the bracelet, you would draw a separate shape just to fill with the metal detail and then let the rest of the bracelet be a different color. So, but if I want to take this shape of this bracelet and I want to fill it with something that's going to look like metal, I'm going to take the fill color, bring it to the top, and then I'm going to click on this little gradient box right here. So gradient is the way that we indicate metal in a CAD. So you can see that gradient is just a shade from white, like the whitest white to the darkest black, and all the shades of gray that come in between those two colors. And that's what gives the illusion of metal. So yeah, if you want to add any kind of metal hardware to your button, you go back to the button lesson that I showed how to actually unlock the button. And then you can fill the button with color. And you can fill it also with solid color as well as gradient, which will indicate a metal button. But basically, at the end of the day, you know, the look is what you want it to be. But I just wanted to show you a couple things to show you how to do hair, accessories. I will just end this lesson with showing if anybody wants to add a face to their illustration. I normally am not great at drawing faces, but I would give you this as a way. If I did want to draw a face, and it's completely acceptable in your portfolio to not have faces on your illustration, nobody would judge you if you didn't have a face. But if you wanted to do faces, it's just a little added thing you can add to your illustration. I'm not personally great at drawing faces, so what I usually do, you can draw a face freehand style if you want to using the pen tool or the pencil tool. But sometimes I'll take like a face that I like. So maybe if it's the same illustration I started with in the pose, if I like her face, or if I don't like her face, I find a new face that I like and I copy and paste the picture from the internet and bring it into my artboard. And then what I would do, let me just quickly make sure I object group this girl first before I layer this image across her. So I'm going to object group her. Oh, don't want to do that. Sorry. You know, you don't actually have to object group her just yet. So I'm going to take the image of the face that I want to copy. This is if you're not comfortable drawing faces from scratch. This is just a little tip that I use because I'm not great at drawing faces. So I could take the image and I actually line it up. I'm going to do an object arrange, send to back. I'm sending the image behind my illustration. And then I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to kind of maneuver it back into place, right? And here's the thing that's going to be really weird, but you'll see it in a second. I'm going to send it to back for a second, so just to line it up. And then I'm going to object arrange, bring it to front. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use opacity. You can see this version here. It's got the opacity on it. I'm going to click on the actual, just the photograph of the person that I want to copy their face. And I'm going to make sure, again, if you don't see opacity, guys, that means your application frame or control is not clicked on under window. Click on the image, not the illustration. I know she's underneath, but just click on, make sure you're clicking on the image. So I usually click it off on the side here where I know my illustration isn't there. And I take the little arrow key here and I click on opacity and I bring it lighter, right? So this is what I want you to look at. I want you to line the illustration of line up the photograph of the face in the right place next to your illustration. So you can see my illustration coming through. You can see the black stroke outline. You can see my hair, my little headscarf. I made sure that I scaled her and lined her up with the illustration that I have. And you know what, you can actually, yeah, you can't lock the illustration, unfortunately, before you do that. So you have to be careful not to accidentally grab on your illustration and mess it up when you do this. So if you need to scale the photograph to make sure that the face is showing up in the right place, you're only moving the actual photograph. You're not moving the illustration. So definitely when you move it, pull at it from these sides here where you know you don't have any drawings. So these are all my drawings here. I don't want to pull it from in here. I want to pull it from the side. And you can scale with the black arrow and just put the face lined up in the place that you need it to be. And then when you do that, you can actually, then you can object lock selection, but only lock the actual photograph. And make sure it's at an opacity so you can see through it. And then you can literally trace over top of her face if you like her face. So again, it doesn't have to be the face, the illustration, the model you start off with to get your fashion pose. It can be something else, but you just have to click on that, bring that drawing, line it up so it fits, the face fits inside the head. And then now you can take the pencil tool and start drawing eyebrows. You can draw a face, you know, the eyes if you want. You can give it makeup. Draw some lips, but you can use this as a tracing tool, and even though it's very blurry, it still give you a place to start to trace over top of. That's the way I would draw faces if you're not comfortable with drawing faces freehand. So after you're done doing that and you have your face, and I'm not going to draw one because I'm deciding to not have a face, I'm going to pull the photograph off. So make sure that you, again, you're pulling from the side. You're not touching your drawing. You're pulling from sides. So all you have to do is pull the photograph off and your illustration is still intact. Once you are done, very important, you are done. You got your face, you got your hair, you got your accessories, you got your outfit. Your outfit has all your stitching details, all your trim details that match your CAD. You got your shadow effects in your outfit and on your skin tone. And you are like so proud of yourself. I want you to do one last step. And this you should do at the end of drawing any garment CAD. You should do an object group. Anytime you do a garment CAD and you're complete 100% done, click on it over with the black arrow and just do an object group, and make sure your front views are separated from your back views so they're grouped separately. Everything's grouped separately. Don't group them together as a front and back view together as one. Group them all separately. That way you can move them around the page and nothing comes off, no stitching disappears or no detaches from your CAD. Do the same thing for your fashion illustration, guys. Like hover over the whole entire thing and, you know, group the whole thing. Group the bracelets, group the outfit, group the stitching, group all those strands of hair that you took all that time doing, and do an object group. I will tell you that if I usually group the illustration off of my collection board so that I don't accidentally grab anything. But if you have backdrops like I have here where they're just interesting photographic backdrops or things that I did here, I would actually object lock selection on those. And so that if I do bring her over and I decide to group her inside of this collection board, I don't accidentally group her with the actual backdrop that's behind her. So object group is really important anytime you're 100% done a drawing, whether it's a flat CAD or a fashion illustration. Just object group as the last step to put that final touch on it so that you now have the flexibility to take the black arrow, move it around the page, and then all you're worrying about now is just creating a visual, compelling layout in your collection board where you can start to lay your illustration out and your CADs that are around it. And that concludes this lesson for fashion body illustrations. I hope you had fun.